Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities, so do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
KFI, Mr. Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. It's Later with Mo Kelly. Hope you've had a pleasant President's Day thus far. Another day, another plane incident, just becoming like any old day in America. Oh, and another 100 or so FAA employees also laid off. You may remember what I said last week. I remember what I said last week. I said it's not about blame, but it is about responsibility going forward. And you can't be an active participant in the hiring and firing of FAA and TSA and FDA and CDC. You can't be an active participant in those hiring and firing decisions and not also be responsible for either the results or the unintended consequences. I mean, how long has it been since we've had an incident on an airplane? Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or so. It's getting to be a routine occurrence. I can't give you an explanation as to why. I just know that it has been happening.
The facts of the matter around this event that happened at approximately 2:30 p.m. is Delta Airlines Flight 4819 from Minneapolis to Toronto, operated by subsidiary Endeavour Air, was involved in a single aircraft accident upon landing at Toronto Pearson. The plane was carrying 4 crew and 76 passengers, among them 22 Canadians. The other passengers were multinational. Airport emergency workers mounted a textbook response, reaching the site within minutes and quickly evacuating the passengers. We stood up our emergency operations center with Delta Airlines and representatives from fire, police, paramedics, security, and our federal agency partners. Again, there were no fatalities. 17 injured passengers were quickly taken to local area hospitals. At this time, we do not know of any of those passengers having critical injuries. We immediately halted further arrivals and departures on our remaining 3 runways. Those runways were reopened at approximately 5 p.m. The other runways are remaining to serve the investigation, which will be carrying forward for the rest of tonight and into the next several days. These 2 runways will remain closed while the investigation takes place. Again, we are very grateful that there was no loss of life and relatively minor injuries. We are very focused on the care and the concern and the passengers and the crew, some of whom have already been reunified with their friends and their families. Others we have in a comfortable place right here at the airport in an environment where they're getting a lot of care and support from my staff. Delta Airlines is also continuing to provide customer care and information for passengers. In closing, no airport CEO wants to have these type of press conferences, but this is exactly what our emergency, our operations, and our first responder partners are all practiced and trained for. And again, this outcome is in due part to their heroic work, and I thank them profusely.
Did you see the video of the woman who was on that plane? For some reason, she decided after the plane landed and crashed and rolled over, she decided to start recording a video saying to the effect of, our plane has landed, it's crashed, and now it's upside down. Maybe it's just me. But if in the unlikely event of a plane crash, you know how they always say, if in the unlikely event of a water landing, if in the unlikely event that I should end up in a plane crash, the absolute last thing I'm going to do is record a selfie video of my ass upside down in a crashed plane. Most likely, I'm going to be scrambling for my life. Most likely. I can't tell you definitively. I've never been in that situation. But I can exclude the possibility of me reaching for my phone. If I'm going to reach my phone, I'm going to call my wife, call someone. Hey, that's my plane. I'm still alive. I'm going to communicate with someone I need to communicate. The last thing I'm going to do is record a video for the purpose of social media or maybe to get on the news. And yeah, she ended up on the news. They did interview her. They did play her video. So if that was the goal, then mission accomplished. I just don't understand people today. And yes, I made mention that President Trump had fired hundreds of employees with the FAA over the weekend. It's not connected to this, but it's not disconnected either, as I said before. To give you specifics, 300 of the FAA members received termination notices over the weekend, and those affected worked as maintenance mechanics, aeronautical information specialists, environmental protection specialists, aviation safety assistants. Wait, let me read that again. Aviation safety assistants. And let me read it one more time. Aviation safety assistants and management and program assistants. I'm not saying that if all of them still had their jobs, this wouldn't have happened. I'm not saying that just because someone was fired that this happened. I am saying I am old enough to remember when people complain loudly. I mean, really loudly, so loudly. I think Mark Ronner even heard it. Good evening, Mark Ronner. I think Twala Sharp heard it. I know Stefan heard it. People were complaining about just decreasing the LA Fire Department's budget and saying that was connected to the fires here. And if that math is consistent and you are going to complain that because resources were taken away in the event of a disaster, that person leading the effort or is responsible for either that agency or that group of people is inculpable, then it would stand to reason, if the logic holds, if you're firing FAA employees here, there, and everywhere, and we have had a rash of FAA incidents, crashes, whatever. It's not a direct causal relationship. But after a certain point, when you keep subtracting from these agencies, you keep subtracting the leadership, eventually there's going to be a hole in the whole system, if not already. If logic serves, you can't blame this person and not also blame that person. But again, I'm just talking about responsibility. There's something not right with our air travel. I can't tell you what it is. I just know that we have fewer people available to either protect us or figure it out. That much can't be argued. We are having hundreds and hundreds. This is not the first firing. I told you about all the other people who were fired. Hundreds of people connected to our air travel, our air security, and our air safety who have been laid off for whatever reasons. It's not for me to tell you that they were great employees or they were horrible employees. I just know that we have fewer employees. And I know in terms of air traffic controllers, we already knew back from the Biden administration that they were understaffed and overworked. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco has thrown his hat in the governor's race. I have thoughts on that. And I will tell you how you can know long before the election whether he has a shot at winning or not. You will know 6-7 months in advance. I'll give you all the clues and all the keys, and you will know in advance whether he's serious or whether he has a shot. That's next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Before the hour's over, just want to let you know and preview that we will be talking about the LAUSD cell phone ban, which starts tomorrow. We have had a lot of conversation on that. Now that it is here and we have a better sense of how it's supposed to be enforced, we'll get into that and let you know what we think. And 1,500 trucks per day of debris removal going on right now in the Eaton Canyon area as they try to move all of that debris, but not only move it, but there's a controversy as to where it's going to end up and for how long. That's before this hour is over. But let me get back to what I intended to discuss. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco has officially thrown his hat into the ring. And his star, at least within Republican circles, has been rising for quite some time. He has been very outspoken. He has been a firebrand in the sense that he's made it very clear that he supports just about everything related to President Trump. That's important. I'm going to get back to that in just a moment. That speaks to his persona. But now he's going to move in a much more overtly political position if he were to become governor. I want you to listen to this. And on the other side of this audio, I'm going to tell you how you will know long before the election whether he has any shot of becoming governor of California. Listen to this.
As I was out there today, I spent the last hour and a half or so out there talking with people from all over Riverside County, Orange County, San Diego County. I appreciate you so much for coming, but what I realized is today we have a microcosm of California here. We have law enforcement, we have firemen, elected officials, we have leaders from our tribal nations, construction workers, teachers, doctors, nurses, students, business owners, real estate professionals, farmers, pastors. I saw a few of my retired friends, dads, and most importantly, for this revolution that we have going on in California, mama bears. I think it would be safe to say that this crowd represents all aspects of our beautiful state. Do you know who I do not see here today? There is no one from special interest groups that are destroying our state. Before I say anything else, I want to especially thank my beautiful wife, Denise. She has been faithfully by my side through this crazy thing we called law enforcement. And so far, she's promised to stay with me during this next thing we're doing. She is truly my rock of support in everything in my life, and she is going to represent California well as a First Lady. Last thing, Chuck and Naomi, thank you very much for allowing us to have this here today. This is an awesome event. I love this building. Thank you very much for allowing it here. So, let's get to it. I'm here to announce our campaign to be the next governor of California.
That was Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco officially announcing his candidacy to become governor. And there are some things that I noticed in what he was saying, where he was saying it, and to whom he was saying it, as far as I'm concerned, lets me know a few things that I think you should be aware of. Part of the reason why it's difficult for a Republican to win a statewide race here in California is it's not as uniform as people would want to make it. There are different groups. There are different political persuasions. It's a blue state, but there are a number of moderate threads and red threads running through the state. And the question is Chad Bianco serious about becoming governor, or is he more running for Orange County supervisor? And I don't mean that dismissively. But if you listen to what he said, he talked about that group for his announcement, how it was a microcosm of California. It really wasn't. It was a microcosm of the professions in Riverside and Orange and San Diego counties. And if you're going to win a statewide election, especially in California, you have to speak to the people that you don't usually speak to. You have to reach out, especially if you're a Republican, because it's more blue than not here. Chad Bianco can't win with just the support of Republicans. Democrats plus independents outnumber registered Republicans 2-1. He cannot win by Republican support alone. And if this sounds eerily reminiscent about what I said about Steve Garvey, that's intentional, because Chad Bianco is going to have to reach beyond his base. And if you want to know whether he is serious about becoming governor, you will see examples of that. You will see him going up and down the state, talking to people and talking to media outlets, which may be either seemingly unfriendly or seemingly foreign to him. In other words, people don't know about him. They're not familiar with him. They don't know his background. And I say the same. Chad Bianco, Sheriff Bianco is welcome on this show anytime, just like anyone else. You're welcome on this show, and you can express your vision for the state. Now, what we saw with Larry Elder, what we saw with other Republican quote-unquote candidates, Steve Garvey, when he was running for Senate, there was an unserious approach. In other words, they didn't have the campaign infrastructure. They didn't hire the people which was necessary to win a statewide election. And they were not making the overtures. In other words, they weren't going to the communities. They weren't going to the counties to suggest that they were actually trying to get those votes. You can't only come on KFI and expect to reach moderates, independents, and Democrats. You cannot. So if the extent of your media outreach is only going to be to friendly outlets or outlets which won't really provide any pushback or won't extend into communities that you don't already have, you're not serious and you will not win. And you will be able to know as we get closer to the election whether Sheriff Bianco is trying to take the Steve Garvey and also Larry Elder route, or is he trying to go maybe the Arnold Schwarzenegger route, where it's a little bit more moderate in presentation, and he will incorporate different constituencies and communities and then give himself an honest shot at winning statewide office. I know you love how he sounds. I know that you love that everything he says in regard to connected to Donald Trump, that just makes you froth at the mouth, but it won't win you a statewide election here in California. Now, you have to ask yourself a question as a voter if you want to support him. Do you want him to just say everything that you like to hear? Do you want him to espouse every belief that you already have? Or do you want to give him a good chance to win? Because those ideas are mutually exclusive. Because if you think that the only way he's going to win is going to mimic everything that you already believe and everything that you already like, and it may be in concert with President Trump, that will not win California. And then we go back to this old cycle of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is a one-party state. The Democrats always win. They always cheat. They always lie. Whatever you want to say. The bottom line is he cannot win if he does not do the things which are necessary to win. And I'm saying it to you, and I would say it to him. And if Steve Garvey were man enough to come on this program, I would have said it to him. But he ducked us. I'm telling you because I appreciate the competition between parties in this state, but it has to be legitimate competition. If this were basketball, if you're not going to practice, if you're not going to shoot 1,000 shots a day, if you're not going to do the cardio work to give yourself the best chance to win when the game is actually played, then you're just effing around. You're not serious. And if you just want to sit back and say, well, the other team always cheats. No, you're not giving yourself a real chance to win. You're not seriously trying. You will know 4 or 5 months before the election whether Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco was serious about trying to become governor of this next state. Because if he's only talking to folks that already agree with him, and he's not talking to the people who actually may disagree with him, if he's not reaching out to constituents and communities who at this point may not be on board, then he's not trying to win. It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
LAUSD Cellphone ban starts tomorrow, Tuesday. We talked about it here time and time again. I am for it. I'm just not so sure it realistically can be enforced. Is it going to be a school-wide enforcement? Meaning, when kids come to school, do they drop off their phones at the principal's office in the administration building? Or is it going to be a class-by-class type of enforcement where you come into Mr. Johnson's class and, you put all your phones in a box and no one can touch them? Or is it going to be the honor system? Didn't know how it was going to play out. Also, is it going to be standardized where all of the schools within LAUSD are expected to follow the same type of enforcement procedures, or is it going to be left up to the individual schools? Those are the questions that I had. And I'm not even an administrator. I don't even work with kids. Thank goodness. They get on my damn nerves outside of martial arts when I can tell them what to do. I can tell them to sit down, shut up. I can kick him in the head. I don't kick him in the head, but you know what I mean. But Twala Sharp, he works with kids and he works in a contemporary environment where he has a better sense of what's happening on a day-to-day ground level. What say you, Twala, before I play this piece on what is actually going to happen?
So far, looking at what they've got lined up or what some of the plans are, I don't see what the point of pushing it back, because this was supposed to have kicked off a while ago. I can't remember I think it was like maybe August of
I thought it was in the
year.
fall or something.
Fall. It was definitely last year. But looking at what they've come up with now, I'm like, I don't see why you held off to come up with nothing. This is not a real plan. This is not something that I see being successful.
Let's see what they have planned.
Starting tomorrow, the Los Angeles Unified School District is banning cell phones during the school day. The policy was approved last June. This includes phones, smartwatches, and earbuds, all of which must be turned off and stored. Exceptions will be made for emergencies, health needs, and students with disabilities. Schools can implement the ban in a variety of ways, like requiring students to put them in their backpacks or using portable storage boxes, magnetic or Velcro pouches, or classroom phone holders. Supporters say the ban will reduce distractions and improve focus. Phones will still be allowed before and after school, though.
What say you, Twala? I think that's pie in the sky. I don't think it's being realistic. Put it in their backpacks. I don't believe that.
No, as I said, there is no concrete plan. It's kind of every school will be able to do it their own way. So that means there is no uniform plan, meaning that all schools have not bought into or do not have a plan across the board that they can stick to and that they can adhere to. If you have some schools saying put it in your backpack while other schools are saying put it in a magnetic pouch, that already causes friction between students who may learn of other different ways, and that's going to cause a problem. Also, they have not said how they are going to address being able to get in touch with students, because we are living in an age now where if there is a crisis on the campus, as a parent, I need to be able to get in touch with my daughter. I don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of the switchboard to get in touch with my daughter to find out if she's okay. We all know here, even in LA, that there have been school shootings and there have been crises on campus. Now we are at a point in time where
fires,
anything,
earthquake,
anything. As parents, we now use these phones or give our children these phones to be able to get in contact with them. I don't see anything in here, any provisions to say how they have stepped up any of their existing programs to be able to get in touch with parents if there is an emergency or anything like that. We haven't received anything home from my daughter who is still in school. I do know that they did show us some of the little cubbies and some of the best practices and, a 3-strike rule. First time you use your phone, you're getting a warning. Second time you're getting a talking to. Third time you're going to call the parent. Got it. I've heard that from my daughter's school, but I look at this plan and I don't think this is going to work at all. And I think this is probably going to slowly but quietly go away before the school year's done.
I always think that if anything, the biggest danger is a failure of imagination, to not be able to foresee likely problems or issues. For example, let's say they took the route where all the phones were turned off and put into a box behind the teacher at the front of the classroom. And then there is some sort of emergency at the school. I'm not even talking citywide, like the school is in lockdown. And let's say you as a parent will get an email message that the school's in lockdown because of X, Y, and Z. No parent can get in touch with any of their kids. That is not going to work. That's not going to be acceptable.
No. Nowadays, we are used to being able to get in touch with our child if there is a crisis. I have gotten text messages during the day where LAUSD has sent a message saying, we have become aware of a potential threat on your child's campus. And I called my daughter immediately to make sure she's okay. because I don't want your random text message to say we are monitoring.
Well, incomplete information.
Yeah, I need to know from my daughter directly. Do not, LAUSD, you're going to get sued. You're going to get yourself sued. You're going to find yourself in a world of trouble because this is not going to work.
I know it's not going to work. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a kid who used to always try to game the system, what's going to happen. You're going to have parents or even students themselves using old dummy phones to turn in, to give to the teacher or whatever, to satisfy the supposed requirement of not having a phone. And they still will have their phone. Maybe it's on vibrate or silent or whatever for selfish reasons, for parental reasons, and I would not be opposed to that because I think the rule is it may be well-intentioned, but it's impossibly executed. There's no way, even under the best circumstances, that this is going to work in a way which is going to be able to satisfy both the school and the student and the parent. It's just not. So what happens is people are going to maliciously comply. Yeah, they'll give you a phone. They'll make sure a phone is turned off. They'll make sure a phone has been turned in to the teacher or to the school or the administrator, and then they'll go about it the other ways. And remember, it said supposedly you're supposed to turn in your smartwatches as well. Right. You're gonna take their Galaxy watches and their iPhone watches and the Pixel watches. Good luck with that. Good freaking luck with that. Yes, they're going to get sued, and I can't say it's undeserved. It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, we got to talk to you now as we go through the recovery stage of after the fires. We talked about the human toll last week, how people like Tuala Sharp have to make considerations on where to live, how to pay for that, where to go. What if you lost your job as well? Well, now we're at the part of debris removal, what that looks like and what that means for people who don't even live in that community. That's next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Ooh, Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640. Ooh.
We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. We talked about the fires. We talked about the damage to structures, how homes were destroyed, businesses were destroyed, people who were displaced. We talked about how landlords may be participating in price gouging, raising the rents because they know that there is a higher need for housing, people who are desperate, trying to find a place to stay. And so rent, without rent control, is out of control. That's just some of the facets of this disaster. But I was trying to remind people when I did my weekly spot on Spectrum News today that the disaster is not over. It's just moved to a different point in the timeline. And although people want to hurry up and get their lives back to normal, and that makes sense, people want to see the communities return to normal, there's a process. It's going to be a long and arduous process, which is going to take years. And part of that is the debris removal. Even though the fires may not have hit your street, the fires may not have hit your community, your neighborhood, there will be debris removal, which will impact you, your community, your neighborhood. In terms of the Eaton Canyon fire, about 1,500 truckloads of debris per day. 1,500 truckloads per day of debris will be moving throughout the Altadena and Pasadena neighborhoods to Duarte. It's a long way in between, which means you will encounter the trucks. Maybe you live in the Duarte area and you don't want that debris there. There's going to be a big fight about where that debris is going to land, how long it's going to be there, the unintended consequences. We talked about how the flow of the debris, thanks to the rains, and how it has ended up in the ocean in some parts, the toxic waste. How long is this going to take? This disaster is going to be continuous. Long after the fires have been since put out, people are still struggling and people are still being impacted.
Think about these numbers for a minute. 2.5 million tons
million tons of debris coming from about 9,000 properties that were destroyed. And all of that going to be basically shipped through neighborhoods just like this one and off towards the 210 freeway and then into that landfill that it's going to be going to be sifted through. There are three main routes that are going to be used for all of this. West of Lake, east of Lake, and then the Hastings Ranch area. Debris coming from west of Lake uses Woodbury to Arroyo Boulevard to get to the 210. That's where we are this morning. Debris east of Lake and west of Eaton Canyon Golf Course, they're going to use New York Drive to Sierra Madre Villa Avenue to reach Rosemead to get to the 210. And everything coming from east of Eaton Canyon Golf Course will use Michelinda Avenue to get to the 210. This all part of the phase 2 of the cleanup. Video coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As you know, phase 1 was identifying hazardous material on properties that had been burned in the fire. Part 2 is cleaning it all out, and they're expecting 1,500 truckloads every day to go through these neighborhoods. Giant haulers, you can't miss them. They're called Super 10 dump trucks. But once they get to where they're going, Lario Park and the border of Irwindale and Duarte, that's where the opposition remains, with residents unwilling to accept promises from the EPA that this is safe on what used to be an equestrian center.
Mark Ronner in the KFI 24-hour newsroom will have more on this at the top of the hour. But Twala, this impacts you, this speaks to you, this involves you. What did you make of this?
You know, it's interesting. I went to Altadena over the weekend just to kind of take some more pictures and get a lay of the land. And I saw in my yard and all of my neighbors' yards, those with the few houses still standing and those that have all just been burnt to the ground. Phase 1 cleanup signs complete. You know, I saw all the signs saying all the toxic material had been removed. Phase 1 complete. And I said to myself, and I'm looking around and I'm looking in my neighbor's yard. I'm like, but that's just a bunch of, I see canisters there. I see all types of things. I know for a fact, my next door neighbor whose garage burned down, his Tesla was in the garage and his Tesla exploded.
That's toxic.
In the garage. And so I'm like, but I looked to the back and I'm like, I went over to his yard like, what did they remove from his garage? So I'm like, it looks like it's still there. So I'll take them at their word that they got rid of all of the toxic debris. I saw a lot of these trucks that they're talking about. I saw a lot of those lined up all over the city. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to be easy. The streets are still narrow. There are still a lot of street signs out. There's still going to be a lot of congestion. If they're talking about going down Woodbury and all that, this is going to take a long time. I drove up to Loma Alta for the first time. The construction zone had moved out of the area. And I drove up to Loma Alta. And it was then that I could see the full depths of the destruction. Because before I'm just seeing from Altadena Drive down. I'm just seeing my immediate area. I drove up to Loma Alta, and when I tell you that as far as the eye could see, I'm seeing nothing. Nothing at all. And you're telling me that you're going to come in and just start, even if you bring bulldozers, heavy haulers, whatever you want to call them, they have the bulldozing trucks up there. They have the scraper trucks up there. They have all these different things up there. This looks like something that's going to take maybe 6 months to a year just to get rid of all this stuff.
Did you notice they said 1,500 trucks per day, and they did not give any end date? They didn't say for the next 2-3 weeks. They didn't say for the next 2-3 months.
Because they know for a fact if they give you any end date, they are lying. Anything outside of a year. And you don't want to tell people right now that we're not going to be back home for at least another year.
No. Not even back home. Just be able to move in and out of that community. Because if you didn't have a house, then that's another year before you could build a house.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. There's so few houses. There are so few houses up there.
Give me a sense of when you say so few houses, most of the neighborhood is gone. But
when I drove up for a mile from Altadena Drive going up to Loma Alta, I saw in both directions for about 2 blocks, I saw maybe one house. For a mile stretch of land, I saw one house still standing. Everything else was just rubble. And then I drove down Loma Alta and I saw nothing but destruction. Blocks and blocks and blocks of destruction of houses not standing.
But beyond that, without the physical structures, the physical edifices of the houses, I'm quite sure the infrastructure from water to electricity to gas, all that's gone as well.
I will say the power.
Communication.
The power is back on. So I was able to reset the alarms and turn the lights on and stuff, only to find out that there's no water running. And they said the gas was on and the gas is not back on. So there's still no water running, period. There's still no gas running. Electricity is up. And from my understanding, that's not everywhere. It's still not everywhere. So again, this is going to be something that is going to take so much time. And the idea of putting this out there like this is a quick thing that they're going to be doing, cleaning the debris out. You can do, 1,500 trucks a day. And even still, with the amount of debris that I saw, because it's not just, we're just loading it's not like you have just a bunch of people, they're just putting, bushels and bags of trash into a truck. No, they're going in and digging out foundations, digging out actual, I saw one house. I remember the house. It's a 2-story house. And when I passed by the area, I did not know that they had almost like a sub level, but you could see all of this house had burned down into a sub level that just, you would have to dig deep down into the ground to get this out. And I said to myself, like, oh man, yeah, when my insurance company said it's going to be like at least 2 years before you get back to the house. When I saw that, I said, yeah, no, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. This
at
is
least
going to be at least 2.
So on the low end, 2 years, probably 3, 4.
Yeah. And then I said to myself, well, there's not a lot of people who will be returning. It's not a lot of people that I know whose families have 2 years to go and sit somewhere before they're able to even come back and plan out a rebuild. Yeah.
It's Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
If you find yourself agreeing with everything we say, we're doing it wrong.
KFI
and KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live every